The Nuggets face elimination in the Bay, but are there adjustments to be had? And what was practice like? All that and more on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen and your first watch if you're on YouTube. We're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, where you can join the show and join in on the chat comments. Someone has commented that the start to these shows is very awkward. Here's why. I have to open a separate tab. I have to open YouTube. I have to refresh when Adam hits us to go live on our local program, wait for the link to populate, get that link, go to my tweet deck, tweet out the link, then come back. And by that time, Adam has usually already opened it up and I'm like, oh, we're live. That is why. So the person that was asking about why are these show things so awkward, that is why. Also, that's just me. I don't know if you just caught this. All right, Nuggets are facing elimination in Game 5 on Wednesday versus the Golden State Warriors at Chase Center, the home of so many horrors for them throughout the last two seasons. You would think that them moving out of Oracle will be a good thing for the Nuggets, but no, somehow it's still not a great situation for Denver. Adam, practice was held today. I was not able to make it as I was cranking through film and writing and doing podcasts and videos for Action Network.
Yes.
So we're going to do a little Q&A, and I'm going to ask you some questions. First, let's do the general thing. What was the tone? What was the feel? What was the vibe at practice today?
What was the vibe? Yeah, what was the vibe at practice?
In the 10 minutes that you get to see the players as they're walking off court and talking to the coach, what was the vibe today?
You joke, but you really do. Like, that is the one thing. The reason we always start there is because it's the one thing you can always take the temperature on. You always can sense the mood of the room. Today, it was great. It was fantastic. And Michael Malone's mood in particular was very relaxed, very, joking around, smiling, laughing, giving great, thoughtful answers. I thought this was one of the better Michael Malone sort of like of what I get out of it. And there's a lot of different types of questions you can ask, but like Malone went into the details of the things that are on his mind. And I thought that he provided a lot of really great insight. So the mood, very, very good today. And even Aaron Gordon, who hasn't been talking a whole lot lately, like volunteered to talk. I don't think he was scheduled to, and he just like walked over and sat down. It was like, oh, AG wants to talk today.
Well, let's start there. What was AG's general message and tone in his comments?
Aaron Gordon's not the best interview on the team. So I was excited that he wanted to come over and talk, but I don't feel like, he didn't necessarily say anything that was terribly insightful.
Got to go out there and compete. Got to play hard.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. And,
no mistakes.
He was asked just about the chippiness of the series. And he's like, yeah, they're chirping a lot. Like, they're talking a lot. But we can handle it or this or that. So that was the only thing I thought out of that.
I feel like he's trying to be the guy that everyone thinks that they need, which is like the guy that's got a little edge to him. The Patrick, like he's trying to be like the guy that kind of brings that edge. Yeah. And I don't know if that's a great fit, but it seems like that's what he's trying to.
Well, so here's the thing about that, because it's interesting. This is an interesting conversation, actually, Matt. I'm listening to Bomani Jones's show. I love Bomani. I'm a big Bomani guy. He hates Karl Anthony Towns. He just hates him. And he's talking about how Karl Anthony Towns and his mic'd up in game 4 or game 3 or 4, where he said, we got to go to Minnesota now. And he's kind of clowning on him. And he's saying, though, that guys, especially in the NBA, they can tell immediately whether or not you are faking it or whether you are actually about it. And he says anybody that listens to that clip with Karl Anthony Towns, he's going in on it, can tell that he is faking it, that he's not actually this guy that like has the utmost confidence and toughness and handles pressure or this or that. And he's saying at Memphis, the Memphis side, they have a bunch of those guys. Tonight, I don't think it's the story of that series tonight, I know we'll get to it, Karl Anthony Towns shushing the crowd a little bit too soon and then Memphis rolling back on him. To me, when you're saying you feel like Aaron Gordon is trying to be the guy, I agree with you that I think Denver needs some toughness, but I don't think he's trying to be what Karl Anthony Towns, to me, is trying to be, which is like he's trying to go out there and like scream at everyone, hey, I'm a star, I'm clutch, I'm all of these things. I don't think Aaron Gordon is doing that. What I think is the Warriors and Draymond in particular have singled him out as in, hey, he's not that guy. And I've even heard some of the some of the people who are sitting courtside or close enough, some people saying that Draymond has even been gone as far as to tell Michael Malone, Aaron Gordon's not your guy. Like, I'm going at, like, they're trying to get in his head and go at him. And what I think AG has done and done well in these last few games is, like, to his teammates as much as anyone else, just gone out there and said, guys, I can handle this. Like, don't worry about me. Don't listen to him. I can handle it. So I just wanted to make that distinction because I think that they're two different things. The trying to be the tough guy versus I can handle them trying to break me.
You probably will not agree with this. I would like to talk about Cat sometime just because I think it's interesting. My take on Cat is very much that I think you're right that, like, there's a lot of comments like he's fake tough. I think you're absolutely right because I think that's what he thinks he needs to do.
Yes, 100%.
Like, he seems very
100%.
much like the person that is very much trying to be what he believes everyone wants him to be, rather than just like what he needs to be. Like, that's
1000%.
so often. I think his intentions are pure. I think his approach is flawed. That's what where I've kind of gotten to with him.
And then it comes off as inauthentic. That's the thing is, like, okay, we can tell you're trying to be the part, but you're not. Be who you are. You could win with that. Like, actually, you're a really talented player. You just don't have to be. You're not Kevin Garnett. You're a different player.
Yeah,
and you can be that.
He shushed the Memphis crowd with like 9:35 remaining, and I immediately bet Memphis to win the game. So that was
wow.
How that goes. So Michael Malone.
Yeah,
was in a good spirit and was into, like, talking about adjustments today. Tell me more. I'm very fascinated by this.
I mean, it was so great. I mean, I learn more every year. We were talking before we came online. Sometimes I think the key is just ask Michael Malone, what are the adjustments going on? Like, from a coach's perspective, what are the key adjustments that both teams are making? Because he basically unprompted went into this today, and I thought it was great. But before we get to the adjustments, I want to say what I thought was the most important answer he gave or topic he discussed today. He was asked with Draymond Green, he's been in foul trouble the last two games. He obviously fouled out this last one. Are there things that the team is doing, or are there spots where the team feels he is most vulnerable to fouling Jokic? Like spots on the court, actions that they run, or tendencies that they can exploit. And he kind of like didn't know what to say. And he says, yes. And he kind of gives a wry smile. And he says, yes, but I'm not going to tell you what those are. But we do feel like there are things we do that make it harder for him to defend without fouling. And we're going to continue to try to do those things. And I just thought, to me, that was the most interesting singular thing that happened is Denver feels like they understand not how to foul him out. He made this clear too. Like, we don't know now we're going to do this. It's just, we know how to make it difficult for him to defend without fouling.
I know why he does. He won't say. I hope one day to cover a coach who is just going to be like, I mean, he knows, like, they've gone over the same things. We both know the same thing. This is NBA. Like, there's nothing new here. We see the same film. Here's what's going on. But for whatever reason, the idea of a tactical advantage is always superior. And I don't mind. It's like, I'm glad that he was willing to at least reveal yes, right? I was glad that he's willing to at least do that. But I think it's an interesting kind of concept of how because that really is the key here. Even in the last two games, Draymond was like a plus 28 on the floor in these last two games.
He's going to be a plus, though. This is the thing is, like, they're going to be Denver's not better than them with their best punches. They just have to survive them. And like I've said many times, the Warriors know this, and they believe that their best punch is worth sacrificing some bad minutes. Like, they just think like they know they're playing some bad minutes. One of the things Denver can do to turn the series, if you win game 5, is you can force them to not throw out that crappy bench lineup that loses every single game. They might say, you know what? We need Draymond to go out there, or we need Looney, or we just need to put one more of our important players there, which means we have fewer minutes to do our knockout punch. And to me, that would be a huge win. So yes, Draymond's been a big positive, and he will continue to be, but that's just because Denver has to survive those death lineup minutes mostly. But anyway, I think with Jokic, just going into the film, Jokic catching on the move and attacking before Draymond likes to get his hands on you, reach, and like slow the game down so he can like pick the angles to attack. If you're constantly moving, like Draymond, when Jokic is attacking, is usually moving his feet, moving his arms. It's before he dribbles, and it's after he picks up his dribble that he gets his hands in there and does this. And I think one of the things Denver has done is Jokic is now catching it and going right away on some of these like elbow or wing touches. And I think that's like where Draymond's getting caught with a hand in the cookie jar a little bit.
What else did he reveal about the game plan?
The interesting thing that I just didn't catch in real time, that I thought was great was he mentioned how they moved Andrew Wiggins onto Monte Morris in the clutch. That they guard him with Klay Thompson all game and they move him there. And he said, and the reason they do that is so that when we run our pick and roll at the end of the game with Jokic and Monte Morris, they can have a bigger body on him. And I think of this and I go, well, here's what's interesting about the death lineup. Andrew Wiggins is the second biggest player. So Draymond then pops out onto Monte Morris, and then you have Jokic with him. And it's at least a bigger body than, say, a Klay or a Poole or Steph. What I think is Denver is going to have to run to Will Barton in this game. Like, I know Nuggets fans are going to be like,
Why would you say this on this podcast? Like, the vibes are good. Why would you say this on this podcast?
Because Barton is better. Like, he's good enough to run pick and roll. He used to be great pick and roll partner with Jokic. They haven't done it a whole lot in this game or in the series. And I think that if you're going to put a Jordan Poole or a Steph Curry on Will Barton, I just think, why not? Let's see if they want to switch. If they're not going to switch Will Barton, like, are they going to put Steph Curry on Jokic? Probably not. So they're just going to fight through that. I would tell Will Barton, you got to put pressure on the defense. They're going to try to just guard you straight up. Draymond's very good at this, but you know what? Step up with confidence and know that they're not going to throw a switch at you. Attack downhill, make Draymond make a decision, and just make plays. I know Nuggets fans don't love that, but to me, I think it's actually a pretty decent option that they can go to here or there.
Do you think they would blitz it?
Maybe, but that's great. It's a win for Denver. Like, be prepared for it.
Can make that pass?
Will's not a bad passer. He just
I agree.
The problem with Will is he goes outside the lines too often. This is a tough thing, is you have to ask him to be very aggressive, very confident, but don't overdo it. And Will can do that. He's had great games where he's done that. They need him to do it now. Like, I in my opinion, I think they need, by the way, Malone didn't say this. This is not Malone's, like, here's how we beat that. But I'm just guessing, if a team is stacking the deck because they think you're going to go to a Monte Jokic pick and roll, the best thing you can do is say, hey, do we have another option that makes them guard the way they don't want to guard? And in my opinion, the answer is yes. They do have a guy that can do that.
Do you think that the series has shifted from they need to throw out Facu and Zeke and try all these things to throw things against the wall to more of like they found something and they need to see whether or not that works, or should it still be desperation time?
No, I think it's definitely the latter. And part of what happens in a series is, teams adjust back and forth, and maybe the Warriors have an adjustment that then calls for Denver. But unfortunately, Denver doesn't have the time to find that out. But I do think at this moment, it's not like after games 2, you're kind of like, man, they just have to throw something at the wall and see what happens. And I definitely don't feel that way anymore. I think Jokic has had 2 very good games against Draymond. He's soundly won that matchup the last 2 times. I think now you look at it and go, can they continue? And you'll love this one, Matt. His other adjustment, there was a couple other things he mentioned, but his other big adjustment was, he said, if you look at the Warriors, they never run pick and roll. Well, down the stretch in the second half of this game, and especially in the fourth quarter, all they did was run pick and roll. Yep. They decided, we're just going to run pick and roll because, one, Denver can't guard. Like, Denver struggles in spread pick and roll. Like, it's just, every team does. But Jokic in particular, that's a tough spot to put him in. But it's interesting to me because they've been scoring very well at that. But if you look at it, they are the team that runs the fewest pick and rolls in the regular season. So for them to change it up and do that, one, is a small win for Denver. It's just saying, like, hey, you're already doing something you don't want to do. You've changed your game plan. But now the question is, Malone says, I think in game 5, they're going to be running pick and roll from the first quarter all the way through the game. They're just going to be trying to pick and roll. And it creates an interesting challenge for Denver. If you stop that, if you defend well and shut that off, I do think that it can disrupt the rhythm, because not only will they not have had a good quarter, but it'll also be like, we went away from who we are and it didn't work. And I just feel like that's both a psychological, but also like you can build up some points there if you do it, if you can stop the pick and roll.
Totally agree. Big part of that is going to be taking charges on Draymond Green, because what they need to be doing is blitzing the ball handler. It was really funny because it was just like the conversation about Steph or Jokic on Steph in that game. Like, that's why Malone was in a great mood. Everything was awesome. Like, it was such an emotional win, like great narrative. And I had to get the last question in and be like, hey, what do you got Jokic on Island versus Curry? Was that supposed to happen? And he was like, no, that was broken coverage. Like, all of these like great narrative moments of like, I'm proud of our team. And like, we stepped up in the moment in the crowd and everything. And I'm like, hey, by the way, was this a screw up? And he's like, yes, thank you for coming. And like, that was the discussion. So yeah, I think that's going to be a big part of it. If they can draw offensive fouls on Draymond when he's coming downhill 4-on-3, that honestly is like that's a gamble worth taking to try and pick up an extra foul on Draymond. Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about what Adam thinks should be some of more of the adjustments and what we expect from Game 5 versus the Warriors. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I want to tell you about Prize Picks. Are you looking for a daily fantasy option for the NBA? Then you've got to try the award-winning app Prize Picks. It's daily fantasy made easy. You pick 2 to 5 players and over/under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry, and it's just you versus the projected numbers. Sneaky good one, CJ McCollum over on rebounds. He's gone over his 4.5 line like consistently in this series. It's a really fun one. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Prize Picks is safe and offers fast withdrawals. You can find the app on both the App Store and Google Play. They offer any prop you can think of, from points scored to rebounds, even steals. Got myself some Herb Jones steals and blocks props because I love betting on Herb Jones stocks. Prize Picks allows mixed sport entries, and they've got NBA along with college basketball, college football, NFL, MLB, soccer, MMA, and more. And for a limited time, Prize Picks has an exclusive no-brainer of an offer for our users. Users get $50 for free if a player in their first Prize Picks entry scores just a single point. Just use code NBA. An exclusive offer for our Locked On fans. Sign up today and use code NBA and get $50 for free if a player in your first Prize Picks entry scores a single point. Prize Picks, it's daily fantasy made easy. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for making us part of your day and your first listen each and every day. Check out Locked On Now. It's got nightly recaps of all the playoff games. Check it out wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. It's Locked On Now. So, Adam, I guess I'll ask you this question. So beyond the pick and roll stuff and beyond the trying to get Draymond in foul trouble, I'm expecting Steph Curry to start in this game. That's my expectation based off of some of the comments coming out of the Bay. Like the beat writers are all like, yeah, he's probably going to start next game. They're going to be done screwing around. What do you think is the differentiator in the success that the Nuggets have had in these starting units if Steph is in there instead of whoever it is that he replaces in the starting lineup?
Well, I am curious to see does he start with the death lineup? Do they just go straight to that and try to hammer it right away and play even more minutes with it? I agree. I think more than likely Jordan Poole ends up going to the bench. Look, Denver's going to struggle. It would be very difficult for me to envision Denver beating Steph, that lineup, with their starters. I think it'd be very, very difficult. I also think if they do that, Denver probably needs to start Austin Rivers. Like, you just need to get to your best lineup to battle that lineup right away. I don't think you can mess around too much. So to me, Denver needs to be prepared for that. And I agree with Michael Malone that I think they're going to go to that spread pick and roll if they do it. Here's the thing. Jokic has actually done really well against Kevon Looney lineups, even with Draymond out there. Malone did have a quote today where he said, even when Draymond's not guarding Jokic, he's really guarding Jokic. And it's true. What I think just needs to happen, one, guys need to make shots tomorrow. It's going to be tough in that environment. But Denver, I think there's going to be an opportunity. When I got into the film for the list, they're doubling Jokic really, really hard, like harder than they were at any point in the series so far. And Denver's going to need to make shots, and they're also going to have to be on a string with how they cut. But that to me would be the thing. You mentioned how the way Denver has done this in the past is they end up getting down 15 points, but they don't buckle. Like, other teams throw that big knockout punch and they think, oh, we've got them. But actually Denver rallies back. And then in the third quarter, they're like, why are we only up 5? I thought we put this team away in the first half. So to me, that's the formula. Is Denver can't buckle. They've got to withstand that first punch, and they've got to make shots, because I think there's going to be a lot of very, very, very good shots available to them early on in this game.
Safe to say they got to win this with offense. That's safe to say.
They've been playing great defense. It doesn't show up in the defensive rating. This is a great team, but I honestly think Denver has played great defense. Anytime you force a team to go to a different option, you're doing a good job. They're not getting beat on really silly things. But yes, Denver is going to have to score. Like, Denver's best defensive performance is going to hold the Warriors to 120 tomorrow. Denver has to score 130, 125.
If the Nuggets win tomorrow, it'll be. Can we agree it's both because Jokic had an amazing game? Do we see any scenario where they win without a great Jokic game?
That's the foundational piece. Like, there's no scenario where they win without that.
Right. If the Nuggets win tomorrow, our second biggest takeaway will be what?
I'm guessing that it probably means that Jokic continued to draw fouls on Draymond Green, because to me, that's more even than Steph Curry. Draymond Green is the piece they can't go without in the series. And if you're able to get him in foul trouble, it just changes everything on both ends of the court. It changes everything that they want to do.
Okay. I would look at the other thing I would say is that likely the bench surprisingly won its minutes again.
I think overwhelmingly.
I think that's like, because the bench was bad in the first two games and was good in the second two games. And that to me is like a big key of this. Like in reality, if you really look at these last two games, it's the Nuggets starters managed to not get blown out by the death lineup, and the bench unit won its minutes. And that to me, and like, honestly, I gotta say this again, the level to which Bones Highland and DeMarcus Cousins in that second quarter stint, when it was Curry and Clay and Draymond staggered and they won those minutes, that's wild. That was a wild performance of a team just like really out hustling them, which was really impressive. But
they made big shots though. And I would say even in the second stint to start the fourth quarter, if you remember, Boogie had 6 points in a row. Like he scored 6 points. Like he had his own little run there. So, but here's what I will say: if they are going to start Steph Curry and they're going to play like that, the bench doesn't just have to win their minutes. I think they need an enormous run. I think they need the type of run. And again, I think they're figuring some things out, but they need the type of run that, one, draws a couple fouls so that the second quarter and the fourth quarter, Golden State starts with 3 fouls in the first like 3 or 4 minutes, but also just that it happens so fast that it's like, you know what, we got to get them back on the court. We can't just play Poole, Bielitsa, Iguodala, and Porter. We just can't play that lineup we want to play it for 5 minutes because then we get our good lineups for the rest of the game. They have to be like, nope, we can't even do this for more than 3 or 4. And to me, that's such a huge key tomorrow.
I think Bielitsa's out of the rotation. I think they're out on that. I think they'll go to Kuminga again.
Or Kuminga, but even Kuminga, like same thing. Yeah. Like Kuminga is so strong. He's not Boogie. Boogie's too strong.
He's not Boogie.
He's not Jokic either. Like Jokic had really good possessions against Kuminga where you were like, yeah, that's a rookie.
Yeah, that's a rookie. There's a lot of comments in here that are predictably pretty negative in the chat, just from I understand it because you want to temper expectations and you want to be like there's a certain like, I think there's a comfort in being fatalist. I think a lot of times I think it takes it's just easier to do that. And like neither Adam and I both thought this would be a pretty fast series. We're not surprised at where the Nuggets are at all. But look, you win. I'll say this: the death lineup is -2 in the last 2 games. They lost those minutes. Now, Steph missed free throws. Steph makes the free throws. They're positive, but they haven't lost them as badly. That's like Steph.
Clay shot 7 of 11 from the 3-point line. He might do that again. He's good enough. But that's when you start to get into all of the little things, because I do this too, where I'm like, Steph's not going to miss the free throws again. He's not going to have a first half like that. Clay was 7 of 11, and Steph Curry was like 14 of 16 to finish the game. Like both of those guys caught fire and were great for a majority of it. That maybe they will again. Like they might.
Yeah,
but they might
very
not.
Easily.
But they might not.
And the Nuggets might just shoot badly. It may be one of those nights they just miss all those open threes, and that's what we walk away with. I love this comment from Ravon. I love how much the Nuggets have to gain tomorrow. That to me is like a great way to put it. The Nuggets have a lot to gain tomorrow. If they lose, they lost to the Warriors without Jamal and MPJ in 5 games. They had a competitive game 3.
Yeah. And
they were overwhelmed by a better team.
Yeah.
So like for me, I think that there's is there a chance? Yeah, there's a chance. That's not. There is a better chance of the Nuggets winning tomorrow. I think like the Nuggets have a better chance of winning tomorrow than the Bucks do, or the Bulls do, rather. Like,
oh man, poor Bulls.
Yeah, they don't. I don't think they have a shot. So and like, look, if they go down, they go down, and we'll deal with the offseason and all of that comes out of it. The win, it's very strange to me. I kind of like I don't know how to process it, except for it's one of those where it doesn't really. Here's how I've kind of come to on the whole like they got one, didn't get swept thing. Right? Because it's like, oh, congratulations, you lost 4-1. The fact that it means so much to the players, and it's evident that it means so much to the players and the coaches and the organization, it doesn't really matter what I think about it. Like you can think about whatever you want as a fan. You have a right to that. But as I often tell people when it comes to like rotation changes with coaches, like why doesn't he do this? And it's like because that doesn't happen in the NBA. Mm-hmm. Like that's not how this works. And there's certain things that like as a person that covers the team, I just kind of accept. And that's one of them is like there is a real sense of palpable relief and comfort in knowing they didn't get swept. And from here on out, they can play loose, and we'll see what happens, right?
I honestly think there's a lot to that. It's part of why Malone, I think, was so much more relaxed today. Is there is that idea of like, hey, we're playing with house money here, and maybe that means they shoot better. Maybe that just means they play a little bit more loose. The one guy who I think has pressure on him again tomorrow is Aaron Gordon. And to be honest with you, I think that he also is in line for like the Nuggets need him tomorrow, and I think they're going to utilize him in some unique ways tomorrow. So we'll see if he's up to the challenge again. I tip my hat to him. He's been playing under immense pressure. Chirping doesn't even begin to explain what has been going on between Draymond and Clay and everybody else on that roster with him. And if he handles it for a third straight time with really well and Denver gets the win, I mean, it's the biggest win for him.
Take a break. We'll come back and we will talk about some of the more of the series around the NBA. And you can ask me some questions. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I want to tell you about Bet Online, your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. You're going to find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs, and of course, all those Rockies. Bet Online is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting, playoffs, esports, and more. I had under on Wolves 113.5, and I bet them the Grizzlies live. It's a good night. It was a good night combined with that CJ McCollum over on rebounds. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Bet Online, where the game starts. We will be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for making us part of your day and your first listen each and every day. Make your second listen Locked On NBA. As you listen to this, I did the Tuesday show recapping the Monday's games, and Adam will be on Friday recapping the Thursday night games. So you can check out more of us. What's better than more of us? So check those out wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. It's Locked On NBA. CJ Morgan says, can Jeff Green get us a 115 piece? I have bet Jeff Green under points, rebounds, assists in every game of the series. Every single one. And is cashed.
As I say, you're a very rich man.
So I've done well in that spot.
This is not AG series. I honestly don't think he has a big role to play. If you're looking for like X factors, Bones is an X factor again. I think Monte's a big X factor. And then Barton, to me, I know nobody wants to hear it, but to me tomorrow, I think Barton's a major X factor.
This is a bold move from you because it's just going to invite more. Like when he has a bad game, it's just going to be more like, biggest spot, Adam said, and look what he did. But
I mean, that's the breaks, honestly. Like, if he doesn't play well, I think Denver loses. So tomorrow is a game where I think Golden State is making the bet that he won't have a big game.
Do you remember Game 7 of the Portland series? The Stotts, who was never a great playoff coach. The first Blazers series.
Yeah. It was Evan
Stotts
Turner.
was never a great playoff coach.
Yeah.
And in that series, every time that he had played Evan Turner, they had gotten destroyed. And he had scarcely played Myers Leonard because every time they played Myers Leonard, they got destroyed. And he threw out Myers Leonard and he threw out Evan Turner, and it was a Hail Mary, and it worked. Turner had several big shots. Leonard had a bunch of threes. And like that really was, to me, everyone kind of talks about CJ McCollum in that game. I will always remember that game as the Evan Turner Myers Leonard game, because literally that was like the last time those guys were in the NBA rotation. Like that was the last meaningful moment for either of those guys in the NBA. And that's okay. Like they get their moment. Like that's how it works. The reason I bring this up is not about Jeff Green or JaMychal Green. It's actually about Zeke Naji. I just think that they probably, I think he should give him give him a different look.
Here's the one thing I'll say. First of all, I don't think the Warriors are going to be thrown off by like, oh my gosh, that was Zeke Naji. I mean, maybe he plays well, but here's the one thing I'll say. Denver has improved in this series defensively by a pretty impressive margin, but from games 1 and 2 to games 3 and 4, like Denver has made so fewer mistakes, and they have made very complicated reads at a pretty high level over these last couple games. To throw Zeke Naji out there and expect him to go from not playing at any point in the last 2.5 months to all of a sudden, like you can't make any mistakes, and you have to switch like 5 times per half court possession right now. And then at the end, you're going to be locked into Jordan Poole and you have to stick with him. I can't imagine him to be up for that challenge.
Let's see what's gone on since the last time that you and I talked on Sunday night.
Oh my goodness.
Let's see.
And nothing happened in the league lately, has there? Any games played?
The drama.
Where do you want to start here?
Let's start. I guess I can tell you about Minnesota Memphis.
Okay.
If you're curious about that. So sloppy game tonight. You would have been appalled if you watched that game. It's good that you didn't watch that game. It was sloppy. It was
game
ugly.
5-2-2, like game 5s are usually sloppy.
That's an interesting idea. I kind of think game 7s are always the grossest.
Yeah, game 5, that's the worst.
Usually, honestly, game 5s are kind of a rollover for the home team, right? You've just lost. You're geared up. You're at home. If you won the last one and you kind of gotten back in the series, you got the momentum. Like historically, those teams win those games, which is why I bet on Memphis on the money line before the game as well, actually in parlay. But this series is fascinating to me because here's what it is. It's like styles make fights. It's boiled into this where it's okay. If both teams play normal, the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to win this series. If they just play normal. But the Wolves can't play normal because they're too erratic. They do not have a calming presence. And they're not, when I say this is not about like them and their personal lives. I mean on the court. Together collectively, the Wolves are dumb. Like they just do a bunch of dumb. Like on the game time, the Wolves are up 3 and Karl Anthony Towns dribbles the ball off of his leg. John Morant goes down and hits a 3. Like, this is the kind of stuff. It's just like a series of what are you doing? Like D'Angelo Russell elects on one of the final possessions to not target John Morant on a switch, but just try and take his defender, Brandon Clark, straight up.
Yeah.
It's just like the simple stuff that they just don't do. Right. And so it's really fascinating, but Memphis just cannot really operate in the half court. I'm really excited to see if Memphis survives this series, what this Warriors Grizzlies thing looks like, because everyone's like, they're going to get killed. Look at how they looked versus the Wolves, but styles make fights. And the Warriors want to play in chaos. That's what they want to do. Like they want to be up and down and crazy and hectic and all this kind of stuff. And Memphis is good there. It's when you grind it down and are like, let's get a good shot. Like, let's actually have a good possession. That's where things get difficult. So I'm really fascinated to see what comes out of this. I think the Wolves get stomped by the Warriors, but I do think that Memphis actually, everyone will be like, there's no chance. Look at how they struggle versus the Wolves. I think they would actually hang in versus the Warriors. I think it'd be a very
one thing we haven't seen, and like it's funny that the Warriors are going to pick and roll. Like Denver is not. There are teams that can switch very, very well, and there's teams that cannot. Denver cannot. Like Memphis maybe can. Like they could throw lineups out there that they can, and we haven't seen how the Warriors. Like look at Phoenix. They murder teams throughout the regular season. You get a team that's switching on them, and it's like it slowed them down at the very least. So the Warriors might look worse against certain teams that are just a little bit better matchup. And I agree. Minnesota, not that matchup. Memphis maybe is.
Looks sure looks like the Utah Jazz are punching them vacation tickets. It looks like this era of the Nuggets versus the Jazz with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert is set to end tomorrow. We'll see what happens. It is in Utah, so who knows? But Dallas, just after the big, I try and be a little bit nicer, kinder to it. I think this stuff does get excessive. But after Gobert was like, talk, and then, okay, how did you respond to that? You came in, you got blown out. You got absolutely not. You scored 78 points. Like, now they just shot horribly and they'll shoot better at home. But I would be very surprised if Utah made it out of the series. I think Dallas wins tomorrow. And if they don't, I think they definitely win game 7.
I like this question from CJ Morgan. If the Jazz blow it up, can we use any of their players? I'm telling you, man, I went through the roster because I thought this exact thing. Like, okay, who can be poached? Wasn't a single guy. A single guy I looked at.
Blackburn wants Royce O'Neal, and they keep trying to be like, I like Royce O'Neal, but I don't think that's the guy.
Yeah, it's not the guy.
I don't think that's the guy. Yeah, there is no. You don't want Donovan Mitchell. I'll just tell you that right now. You don't want.
Well, the Donovan Mitchell price tag is not. That doesn't even make sense. I mean,
that Mitchell was like, I want out and I want to go to Denver. He won't. He wants to go to the Knicks. But if he did, right, he was like, I want to go to Denver. I want to go play for a winner.
What? I'm on the wrong side of the Rockies over here. I got to get to the right side.
The views are much better on the Front Range. Let's say that happened, and they were like, we'll take MPJ, right? And that again, this will never happen.
Yeah, Utah. They're like, let's get MPJ's 5-year deal. He's played 100 games.
I don't think that happened. So I don't think that even if that were to occur, I don't think it's a good fit.
Like Bogdanovich to me is, I love him. I love his game, but Denver doesn't need his ISO scoring with it. Like that's just not what they need. You look at Jordan Clarkson, I don't think is what they need. Mm-hmm. Mike Conley's not really what they need, even though I like Mike Conley.
Would take Eric Paschall. I'm serious.
I know you are. That's what makes it so funny.
Why are you laughing? Look, they just need a backup center. Just get Eric Paschall and have him be the backup center next year. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, one thing you saying this actually reminded me. I asked Boogie if he would want to see Jokic Boogie lineups against this. He very much does. Very, very, very much wants to see it. So I don't know if we'll see it. Malone hinted at it in between games 3 and 4, then did not play it. Maybe they're actually, that might be the crazy Hail Mary that they throw in this series. It's like, you know what? Let's just see what happens.
Man, he's resisted changing starters all year. This would be a really good time to throw a wrench. Just, it is worth getting creative. There is no bad, if you get destroyed, it is not it's going to be because they're better. I think it's worth.
It would be hilarious. Like Denver would get blown out with Steph Curry in the starting lineup and both Boogie and Jokic. Like they would give up a lot of points. But look, what did we just say? The number one most important thing is Draymond Green fouling out. If you just make from the get, he has to guard one of them. Which one are you going to guard? Okay, we're posting it up. Don't foul. But look, again, Denver's not doing this. We don't have to entertain it.
Phoenix takes control tonight of the series, 112-97 versus the Pelicans. I think the series is still going long. This is a tough matchup. Pels are not going away. I still kind of think the Suns will get out of this one.
Me too.
But New Orleans has I will just say, man, Zion with the whole it's just a shame, man. If you brought Zion onto that team, it's like, man, you might be able to make a real ruckus.
Antonio Daniels, who does their play-by-play, their color commentary, was asked about Zion of Ingram. It's looked at times like Ingram didn't enjoy Zion driving to the basket every play last year, and maybe he didn't enjoy playing with him, and he's just said no comment.
Yeah,
I was like, wow.
There's a lot of stuff to figure out there. In the Eastern Conference, it's 3-2 all of a sudden. Embiid's hurt, doesn't look right, not able to rebound.
Hey man, his thumb. I don't know how his thumb affects his defense, Matt. I'm not giving this. He's hurt.
I'm not going to participate in this. You can do
really?
This.
You think the thumb is affecting why he's getting ice? Why he's getting attacked by Precious Achiuwa?
I completely agree. He got.
We don't have to
by
go
Precious
full heel. I'm just saying. I look at that series and I go, is it a lock that Toronto's going to win 6? No, but I would bet on it. I would bet them to win game 6. And that means we might, if we get back to a game 7 where you were up 3-0 and you get back to a game 7 do or die, that team does not have the vibes that I would be like, oh yeah, the better team will win this one.
And then Embiid was they asked him about Harden and he was like, I've been telling them all year he needs to be aggressive and he needs to stay aggressive. But honestly, that's not my job. The coach needs to be telling them.
He threw 2 people under the bus in one comment. I couldn't believe it. It was game 5, Matt. They're not even really feeling the pressure yet.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? I don't want to
No, you're right. I'm with you.
But I'm just like, dude, what are you doing? That was such a passive-aggressive response. I couldn't believe, just come out and be like, I mean, if you want to call a guy out, call him out. Be like, you know what? I've talked to James a lot. He needs to be more aggressive. I want him to be more aggressive. Say it, but also let him know you have his back. But I've got his back. I know he could do it, whatever. But the passive-aggressive, it's not my job. It's the coach's job. But if you're asking me, he should be aggressive. But it's not my job. It's the coach's. Man. It's like, bro, what?
I'm not prepared for what Twitter's going to be like if they make this 7, let alone
Matt
win it.
Matt, you're gonna have to unfollow me or mute me if they do this. I don't like to become the troll, but I'm sorry. Too much was said too early in the series that true. If they blow it, too much was said for me to sit on the sideline.
Heat advanced, took care of the business. I think the Heat are sneaky underrated. I think that team's really good.
They might. Why? Miami is the team. They're the one team. I think. I don't think I have this for any other team. They're the one team that I fall the victim to. I wasn't sold on them this year. Meaning I wasn't the story. They were never the story this year. Yeah, and so they've just been under my radar all year. I think.
Yeah, I wound up watching a lot of their games, and I was really impressed with how. Again, I'm a big mark for how the Heat culture stuff goes a little bit too far because it goes into this mindset of toughness and the posing in the locker room and all that shit. But I do buy into the fact that they are a very well run organization. Pat Riley empowers smart people. Andy Ellisberg is really good at his job. Adam Simon is really good at his job. Eric Spoelstra, I think, is actually one of the best coaches in the NBA, as opposed to everyone who runs zone that everyone thinks is a genius. I think Eric Spoelstra actually is a really great coach in every single level. They have good leadership. They play really well. Bam Adebayo tonight in the last like 5 minutes of that game was incredible defensively. I thought Bam should have been DPOY, and like tonight was a good example of what he can do. He was incredible. He's Jokic is a bad matchup for him. He can't do anything, but Bam is in most of these games and these big playoff things. His defense is absolutely terrific.
Can I ask you this? Because you said something and it made me laugh. Because you said like the Heat culture stuff. Like they do, whether you agree with it or not, they do have a culture there. Like they do have an identity that they cultivate. I'm a very proud individual. I'm not a Heat culture guy. Like I don't think I would thrive with the Miami Heat. And just like it's just a personality thing, this or that. But it made me think like, what culture would you best thrive in? Not as obviously as a player. I'm just saying like, what cultural identity fits your personality the most? Because there are these little ones around. Like there's a Lakers identity they have. There's a Boston identity.
It's Spurs.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, I could see that.
It's professionalism above everything else. It's that we're gonna do things. We're gonna do things that, like the thing with the Spurs. What I from covering those teams and getting to know people down there a little bit, because it's a very tight organization, obviously. What you catch on to is that it's not, and OKC's like this too, honestly, it's not just the locker room.
Yeah.
It's scouts and ball boys and arena staff and training staff and personal development and sales and marketing. Like the whole thing brings with it an ethos of this is how we're going to do things. This is how we do things.
I think Golden State has that as well. Where they're like from their PR staff all the way up to the top to all the way to the bottom, everything just like feels like the Heat have a plan in place. They're like Chick-fil-A.
What is the Nuggets identity? THTR 201 says. What's the Nuggets identity? One word and how you would describe them.
People are going to really laugh at this. I'll say mine first. I'll let you think of it. Yours will probably be better. Mine is family.
I was going to say the same thing.
No way. There you go. Like people don't realize this, but Denver has a small front office. They have like everything about it's just kind of small. Like from Josh Kroenke down to whatever, it's not that many people. And I think that's both a weakness and a strength, but I do think that they have cultivated this like very small, we all know each other's names. All the important people know their names.
The connective thread is that they care about you. With Heat culture, it's about, I'm going to hold you accountable and I expect you to do the same to me.
Right.
With
it's almost
Denver,
mafia family. It's like a different type of family, more of a
And with Denver, it's about, I care about you and I'm invested in you as a person, regardless of how we do on the court.
Right.
I care about you. And that's like Malone does that with the players and the front office does that with its people. Like Tim Connelly is a very warm person. And I think that's part of that equation.
Yeah. And I know like some people are saying like, am I the only one cringing? Like, look, it's all of these things, even Heat culture has some cringe to it. Like they're like all of these ones, like Denver's family, us both saying it. It's not that it's the right way. It's a way. It's like, it's a way to do it. And it has its strengths and weaknesses.
It's what works for them.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's
Nuggets equal Vin Diesel.
Yes.
PJ Dozier coming to the game for sure.
It's been a long day without you, my friend.
You want to talk about the Nets now? Do we get to go here?
Oh,
I
hadn't even thought of this. So
wow.
You're the team that you dreaded all year because you were like, are they really going to be this disrespectful?
They were the favorites like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah. And they're gone. Look, you have to. I think the bigger thing for me is just I think that it was. I mean this. I really do mean this. I think it was worth exploring the idea of, could player empowerment really create everything that you needed? Because players really do think that they know best. And I want to be very clear. I think they know more than me. I just do. Like that's my personal opinion.
I don't. I think they know different things than you. Like, but they can't. And some of them do. Like Draymond Green knows more than all of us by leaps and bounds. But I'm telling you, the Brooklyn Nets in large part are thesis statement. And do these guys actually know all of the ins and outs of this? Michael Jordan's the greatest player ever to play. He's been a horrible GM and owner. And like all of even the parts of his philosophy that worked for him, he does not realize don't work for everyone. So it's like, You could have a politician you disagree with that knows more about tax code and tax law than you do, but it doesn't mean that they have a better ideas about how tax policy should be implemented.
But this was definitely a failure, and whether it was because of their approach or the personalities involved, it was a failure. I tend to lean towards the latter. I think it's possible. I think if you had Tim Duncan, or if you had, I'm trying to think of who's a really Chris Paul, even, I think would be successful. It would be a miserable situation, a miserable organization most of the time, but I think it could be successful. I'll just say it, like, I don't think having Kyrie Irving is this much of a pillar for you. I don't think you can do it.
Oh, come on. Of course not.
I don't think you can do it.
Well, you were saying, like, here's the thing that's annoying is they were even talking about like finding some new guys or this or that. And part of me is just like, is there a limit to where none of this matters? And the answer is yes. And they're probably not that close. The thing about the Nets that is really telling to me, that's really damning, I don't think they have a great coach in Steve Nash. Like, I just don't. But part of this is like you're coaching the thing they wanted to do. So what do you mean? Like KD said,
you didn't have any power. Yeah,
that passing stuff is all cute until the playoffs, and then it's like, hey man, like.
So I argue with our mutual friend Anthony Irwin when he was saying a couple of years ago that Rob Pelinka needed the Executive of the Year award. I was like, he didn't, like, Clutch is running things, Anthony. Like, everyone knows in the league that Clutch is running things. Give it to Rich Paul. And now it's like, man, Rob Pelinka is just not good at his job. It's like, he didn't do any, like,
yeah.
Look,
there's just a line when it doesn't matter.
Here.
There's a line at which it doesn't matter. And we found out this year that line is not KD and Kyrie, but it might be KD, Kyrie, and Simmons if he ever plays. It might be KD, Kyrie, Simmons, and, disgruntled superstar X that just joined. Like, there is a line where it's like, man, you know what? That team doesn't have to learn any lessons. They don't have to do anything. They just have to go out there, and they're probably going to win because there are too many good players on their roster. And maybe they're going to try to build that. But the thing that to me that's most interesting about this series is they've played two great, like, they played the same way in games 1 and 2 against Boston, and they almost won because they're that good and Kyrie is that good. But once they fell down 0-2, something happened, and the quit was unbelievable in that group. And those are the types of things you watch. And I shouldn't say all of them. I should not say all of them, but especially in Kyrie Irving, who, to your point, is obviously a pillar. I just felt like how he played in those last 2 games was like mind-boggling.
I want to ask you, as somebody that played competitive basketball, about when he didn't take the shot at the end of the half with 1.4 remaining. Did you care at all?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. Good.
Of course.
Like,
but first
what
of all,
are you doing?
My playing experience does not in any way like give me insight into that, though. So that, like, there's very narrow ways in which I think it provides insight, and most ways where it does not. But that one, like, I have no frame of reference for.
I just didn't want to be like, as somebody that doesn't have that experience, I wanted to ask somebody that, like, actually at least fundamentally, like, has played in games with consequence of, like,
you can tell when guys care or not about the right things. Look, I don't know. Kyrie was weird in those last 2 games, man. He was really weird. And I got to say, some of the reporting on Ben Simmons is like, I hate the conversation around Ben Simmons because it's so polarizing, and we exist in this jokes greater than facts world where it's like, hey, what's all fair game? And there is a level of that where, like, these guys are pro athletes. It's fair game for them to be criticized for certain things. The Ben Simmons mental stuff might be real in like a really weighty way, like in a way that we're like maybe not fully grasping just yet. And we'll see. We'll probably won't know until next year, next October or whatever. But I would not be surprised if this was not the last we heard of. Like, we just get back to October and it's like he's healthy and this or that and everything's good now. Like, it might be a thing where it's like, no, he's still dealing with some of this, and that it would be a crazy scenario if we got there.
Yeah, almost as crazy as if he was traded to the Denver Nuggets this summer. That'll do it for Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you guys joining us in the chat. We will be back. Are we podcasting tomorrow? No, that doesn't.
Well, we'll do it 10 a.m. on Thursday.
10 a.m. Thursday is next time we're going to do a show. We'll have your recap from Game 5 and maybe a season retrospective, off-season look ahead, or not. Who knows? The future is unknowable. We'll catch you guys again next time. Thanks for joining us on Locked On Nuggets.